everyone, welcome back to Yulan's channel. Today we'll be talking about Unit 4.2 Classical Conditioning, which is our first video on each type of learning. And today we'll be focusing on classical conditioning. And a famous example of this is the salivation of the dogs, conducted by an experiment by Ivan Pavlov. And his work will be mainly focused on in this type of learning. So, and also if you haven't watched my previous videos on overview of learning and also like biological basis of behavior, sensation and perception, and also the scientific foundation of psychology, please do watch those videos because they're really helpful in preparing for success in your psychology learning. So yeah, let's get started. Classical conditioning is the most closely associated with the work of Ivan Pavlov, which is why it is also known as Pavlovian conditioning. Classical conditioning involves presenting a stimulus that makes the organism respond in a certain way. When paired with another non-related stimulus, the stimulus forms an association between the two. The non-related stimulus begins to evoke the same response that the original stimulus does. The graphic show here shows how Pavlov paired a neutral stimulus, which is the bell and whistle, with an unconditioned stimulus, which is the food, to elicit a conditioned response, which is salivation, from the whistle alone. The stimulus and response. The stimulus can be anything perceived by the five primary senses, which is touch, sense, smell, hear, and visual, and we covered those in our Unit 3. It can be a sight. This response in classical conditioning is any reflexive, non-voluntary behavior, such as something that one cannot readily control. Usually, classical conditioning involves a stimulus that causes an automatic physiological response. Sometimes this involuntary response is known as respondent behavior. Examples of reflexive involuntary responses are heartbeat, heart rate, breathing, respiration, salivation, which is mouth-watering, startle response, nausea, shivering, and sexual arousal. Some of the stimulus-response pairings or contingencies result from the experiences from our environment. We have learned to react in certain way to certain stimuli in a certain way. For example, if $100 bill is placed in our hands, we might feel our bodies respond as a result of the excitement we might feel. Our heart rate and respiration might go up. However, we were not born to react that way. Giving the same $100 bill to a baby will not yield the same reaction. When response to a stimulus is the result of learning, refer to it as conditioned or conditioned response, CR. The stimulus that causes the conditioned response is called the conditioned stimulus, CS. Some of these stimulus response pairings or contingencies are natural, innate, and unlearned. That is, we are born to react to certain stimuli in a certain way. When light is shined in one's eye, the pupils constrict. This is a natural process. When response to a stimulus is natural or unlearned, we refer to it as unconditioned or an unconditioned response, UR. The stimulus that causes the unconditioned response is called the unconditioned stimulus, US. A classical example of classical conditioning is thunder and lightning. Lightning on its own does not what causes us to flinch in fear when we see it close by. It's an implicitly conditioned response to this association with the loud crack of thunder that we have learned will follow shortly. Thus, lightning begins as neutral stimulus by itself, but through conditioning becomes a conditioned stimulus that elicits the conditioned response of flinching and fear. The conditioning explains why we flinch in fear even before the thunder has time to sound, because we learn to predict what is coming next, and our body reacts involuntarily in anticipation of the pending crack of thunder. So here the classical conditioning model in thunder and lightning example is neutral stimulus is lightning and it causes no response at the beginning, and unconditioned stimulus is thunder and then the unconditioned response as a result is flinching. Neutral stimulus is lightning plus the unconditioned stimulus which is the thunder, and then turn to unconditioned response, which is flinching. And finally, we have conditioned stimulus every time you see a lightning, and you have unconditioned response, which is flinching. During the acquisition stage, a neutral stimulus NS, which doesn't produce a noticeable response, acquires the ability to affect the same response as the unconditioned response. In AP psychology, the neutral response is usually presented before the unconditioned stimulus, which naturally produces the unconditioned response. After numerous periods of the neutral stimulus and unconditioned stimulus, the neutral stimulus creates the response by itself. What is once the neutral stimulus becomes a conditioned stimulus, and the reaction to it is a conditioned response. If a conditioned stimulus is presented numerous times without being paired with the unconditioned stimulus, there may be less of a conditioned response, and it may even eventually cease. In this instance, the conditioned response has gone into extinction. Extinction is when a conditioned stimulus is no longer produces a conditioned response. Even when extinction occurs, there are times in which the conditioned stimulus, having been shown to no longer produce the conditioned response, will unexpectedly affect the conditioned response. This process is referred to as spontaneous recovery. Spontaneous recovery is the time following extinction when the conditioned stimulus restarts to create a conditioned response. So this table from the website Pavlov is really is a great table that summarizes these different key terms. So let's keep going. So stimulus generalization, or generalization in general, refers to when stimuli similar to the conditioned stimulus also produce a conditioned response. For example, if a person is conditioned to have an elevated heart rate at the appearance of a green ball and shows that same conditioned response to anything green, the conditioning is considered generalized. Stimulus discrimination is the exact opposite of generalization. Not only does a similar stimulus fail to produce the conditioned response, but the actual conditioned stimulus can only produce it as it was originally presented. In the previous example, a person has been conditioned to respond to green ball. However, the response only occurs in response to that shade of green. However, not all conditioning is based on an original stimulus unconditioned response pairing. For instance, a worker who became excited at the sight of their paycheck very likely did not have the bodily conditioned response because the paycheck was originally paired with something that naturally produced that type of bodily response. The response was very likely produced by money or the reception of money, which itself is not an unconditioned stimulus, that is, it is not natural. Instead, the conditioned stimulus was established as the money as it was paired with some other type of stimulus. Because the paycheck excitement contingency was initiated on a previously conditioned stimulus, it is referred to as higher order conditioning. Higher order conditioning refers to conditioning that is built on previously established conditioning. So please pause the video and take a look at those tables, and yeah. Here are some experiments and key psychologists need to know for this unit or like AP Psych on the exam. So the first one is Little Albert experiment by John B. Watson, and we mentioned him a couple of times in our previous videos. And he used the classical conditioning model to condition a baby boy named Albert to have a phobia for white rabbits. He presented Albert with a white rabbit and other animals, like a dog and a monkey, to which Albert showed no response other than perhaps curiosity. Then, when Watson presented the white rabbit to Albert, he also struck to a loud metal bar, making a loud noise that would startle Albert and cause him to cry. He repeated this process multiple times until Albert began reacting negatively and crying at the presentation of a white rabbit alone. John B. Watson proved that one could learn to have a phobia from the classical conditioning model. Watson then experimented with other stimuli to test for stimulus generalization and discrimination, such as presenting Albert with the dog, the monkey, and other things like a wet Santa bear to see if they evoked a fear response, such as the rabbit has been conditioned to do so. However, his experiment has been proved to be unethical because it violated the ethical guidelines by American Psychological Association, and also because it creates trauma for the baby who is the participant in his experiment. Then we have John Carcia and the taste aversion in rats. Psychologist John Carcia used aversion conditioning to show the influence of biological preparedness in classical conditioning. Biological preparedness is the idea that people and animals are innately prepared to form associations between certain stimuli and responses more rapidly than others. To illustrate this, he presented rats with 3 different neutral stimuli: saccharine, water, a noise, and a light, while also hitting the rats with a mild radiation that would cause nausea. The rats associated nausea with the saccharine water and refused to drink it, which is aversion conditioning, showing a conditioned taste aversion. However, they did not show any conditioning to the noise or the light, which indicates organisms are biologically prepared to form associations between stimuli and responses that are critical to survival, such as with food, drinking, and subsequent digestive problems or sickness. So here's the end of our lecture today. Thank you for listening. And if you enjoy the content, please like this video and subscribe to my channel. And yeah, please stay updated for my future high quality videos. And thank you for listening. Oops.